Before you start your Do What You Are assessment, it's important to go into that assessment understanding what the Myers-Briggs personality assessment is and how it can be useful to you. With the EDUC class, when we meet in a traditional face-to-face class, we generally have a counselor come in, and so this slideshow is what the counselors present to the class when they make that visit. I have this available for you to see on D2L, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly here. You'll see that the CASA 109 listed here, that's for the Cypher campus if you need to go to campus and speak with a counselor. And again, keep it in mind that counselors aren't there just to be therapists. They do, if you have personal problems and want some general life guidance, they will help you out with that. But counselors their main job is to help with career evaluation, to make sure that students declare the right majors and that they know what sort of education they need to get into a job. But they also help with this sort of Do What You Are assessment where they match personalities to different career types to make sure that when students graduate and they get a job, that it's the job they were expecting and it's everything like they wanted it to be, as opposed to I saw this on TV and it looked really cool in the TV show and then I got there and it turns out it's super gross. And that happens a lot, particularly when you get into medical fields. And then there are other jobs like being a police officer. There's a lot of expectation that goes into it. It's portrayed one way. And then the real world situation is completely different. And so part of the counselor's job is to give you a realistic, real world understanding of what a job is going to be. A lot of students who start college, before they start college, they have some idea of what job they want by the time they graduate. And if you don't, that's okay. That's also pretty common. But one of the things that's really interesting, even with students who come to college knowing what job they want to pursue, 70 to 80% of college students will change their major at least once. That means they'll change their career path at least once. And roughly half of all freshmen will change their career path a couple of times. And the reason that is that when students think about jobs and job satisfaction and what they want out of a job, they generally come up with a couple of ideas, and it generally revolves around either money, I want a job that just pays well, or they want a job that they've seen a friend or family member doing. And either of those approaches is perfectly fine. What you want out of a job, that's up to you, right? But what we generally don't see in freshmen is that they did a lot of research into what that job is going to be. And so even though you might want a living wage or a lot of money or a lot of respect out of your job, when you get into that job, is that what you're going to get? Do nurses get paid a lot? If so, what type of nurse makes the most money? And so the ideas that we bring into our initial job search and our initial decisions may change over time, and they may change when we get more information and a more realistic picture of what we're actually going to be doing. So when we talk about career planning, it's a cycle, not just how you choose a job. So right now, you've probably already have a decision. And right now you're at college because you have a career plan that you need a particular degree in order to enter that field. So the question is, well, have you evaluated your decisions? Does it really line up? Do you have a realistic expectation? Is the degree you're thinking about the correct one? And even if you do like it now, part of the career planning is that 2 years from now, when you have several years of college under your belt, maybe you're working at the same time and you meet new people, have new contacts, get new information, maybe your values will change and maybe what you want out of a career will change. And so even when we make this decision, it's important to understand that people cycle through this and people change careers over time. And so it's important to understand how to explore career options so that we can then evaluate our decisions and make sure it's still matching the person that we have become over time. So with Unit 2, the Do What You Are assessment is a psychological evaluation based upon the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. Basically what this comes down to is it looks at your natural preferences in how you think, how you behave, what you like to do, and what your natural inclinations and instincts are in a situation. One of the things that I have in this is, according to the Myers-Briggs, I'm an introvert. That means on a Friday night, I'd rather stay home and read a book than go out and hang out with friends. So in an education sense, I'm interacting with people in the classroom, and that's kind of a strain on me. And these recordings that I'm doing are kind of stressful, and I put a lot of effort into making these acceptable by my own standards. So that part of my personality, being an introvert, affects the way I approach my job. One of the core features of the EDUC course is that we're going to be doing a lot of self-evaluation to grow in a sense of self-awareness. And this really boils down to having a realistic understanding of our own strengths and our own weaknesses. Understanding strengths means that you'll know what you're good at and how you can benefit yourself and those around you. Knowing your weaknesses means you won't overcommit. You're better prepared so that you can control circumstances in the event that you might struggle with a task, and it gives you a sense of how you can grow and improve over time. So when we're talking about self-awareness, we're talking about personality, interests, values, skills, your life, and where you are. As this relates to a job, here's a little anecdotal story for you. So I'm a professor, and I've been working as a professor for about 6 years. Before I became a professor, I worked in education, teaching everything from elementary up through high school for a couple of years. Before that, I worked in IT, and I worked in education. I trained people in computer use, programming, and web design. And then before that, I was a student in college. Now, the career path that I've actually had has been mundane office work for the most part. With education, I spend most of my time planning lectures and doing research, with a few hours here and there where I actually present to people. So it's relatively little interaction with people. And that fits my personality. I'm an INTJ, which is perfect for research scientists and professors. When I first graduated from Sam Houston. I was younger, I was very athletic and sort of headstrong, and I wanted to be a police officer. Now, I didn't decide that while I was in college, so I didn't really have the correct degree to do that. I was a geography major and originally was going to join the Peace Corps and do volunteer work professionally. But when I graduated, there's no pay in that, so I decided, hey, wouldn't it be cool to be a police officer? So in order to be a police officer, you have to get T-close certification, you have to get your handgun license, you have to go to police academy, and then get signed on with a department somewhere. And so I started applying to various departments around Texas and had plenty of interviews with Houston, with Pasadena, with Huntsville, where I was going to school. Because these places, when you apply and you get accepted, they would pay for you to go to police academy and get all the certifications that you need. You didn't have to have it beforehand. You just had to be a really good candidate, and they would pay for you. Well, part of the application process is that you have to fill out a bunch of background information. They do this really thorough investigation on you. They called all my friends and family members, former bosses and roommates. And then we had to do a physical, which I passed because I was a lot younger than I am now. And then we had a psychological evaluation. And every time I got to this point, I failed it. I just completely flunked the psychological evaluation. And it's not because I'm crazy. It's because I'm not aggressive enough to be a police officer. My personality is not strong enough for me to take control of a situation. I don't have a commanding presence. I have good leadership ability, but not very good stress reaction. So high tense situations, I panic. And so my personality of being kind of mellow and a pushover did not mesh with my interest in being a police officer. And that's not something that I'd really thought about beforehand, because in my mind, before I applied to the academy, I thought of police officers as protectors of the peace, and I want to protect people because that helps people, and I want to be a helpful person. But that's not really what police officers do. And in order to get to the investigative positions, and when you're solving crimes, you're doing interviews, you have to go through police academy, you have to be a patrol officer for a while, and you have to have a certain level of aggression. So with that said, the self-awareness step is very important. If I had paid to get a criminal justice degree and graduated from Sam Houston and then applied to a police department and found out that I'm not, psychologically fit enough to be a police officer, well, what am I going to do with my degree? What am I going to do with the 4 years I wasted investing in a career that I can't get? And that's why self-awareness is an important step in choosing your career. The Myers-Briggs assessment looks at 4 different categories with 2 options each. And based upon your personality, you'll fall more towards one or the other. It's very rare that you have someone who is fully extrovert or fully introvert. Typically you fall somewhere around the middle, but you lean a little bit more this way. And because each of these 4 different fields is a spectrum and you can go anywhere on the line from the 2 extremes, the personality that you get at the end, one of the 16 different types, isn't going to be spot on perfect. It's going to be more of a milestone or meter stick by which you can assess yourself. It's a guide, It's not a clinical diagnosis. So when you're taking your Do What You Are assessment, keep that in mind. Answer honestly. There is no wrong answer. And with the answer that you're given, when you have your personality type, look over it and evaluate it and kind of ask yourself, does this seem accurate?